All right, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you're listening to this. If you're listening to it live right now, good afternoon. Today's show, we're going to be talking about the woke right and they. We're not going to specifically stick to those things because I've been looking forward to speaking to my dear friend that I have with me today about all these things. He's always a great listen. He's changed my mind on many, many things. And I think he's about to change my mind on something else too. But we'll get into that throughout the show. Make sure to all the links below where you can find my guest, everything he's got going on, as well as myself. A Common Crown's got a ton of cool stuff going on next year. So make sure you kind of stick around for that. Tiger Fitness through the links below to get yourself some great supplements. I think they're going to be restocking the outright bars here soon. A whole lot of them are out of stock right now, but they should be back in sooner or later. Deemed Fit through the link below, and Fox and Sons Coffee. Use code Kyle at checkout to let Steve know I sent you. And it's kind of funny because Steve and I always sing my guest today's praise. So without further ado, let's get into it. And welcome back to the show, Pete. I figure I would bring you good news first, and I wanted to let you know it has been 1,619 days since George Floyd got sober.
Wow. It's really been that long?
Yeah, May
Wow.
25th, 2020.
Wow. Time's flying by way too fast, man. It's so funny. Somebody was like said on Twitter the other day, said you were like an ANCAP yesterday, and I'm like, I can give you episodes from like 3.5 years ago where I'm like, yeah, I don't call myself an ANCAP anymore.
Mm. Yeah, I think when I discovered you was early 2021 because I started the show October of 2021, and I've even changed my perspective on quite a few things. But I know for you, you've been very vocal about your changes, and I think one of the things I've ad nauseum said about you is that I respect you the most because you've always been open about the things that you've changed your mind on, and I think people being able to see that the assholes are never going to believe you, or they're going to say you're a grifter, you're just kind of hopping on the latest thing. But I think it's a genuine change. And I think anybody that comes out, specifically when their financial benefit is at risk, I just have immense respect for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, thanks. I lost a lot of listeners, but I really haven't gained them all back. But what I found out was the listeners I have now are just so much more hardcore. I mean,
Mhm.
so willing to, get involved with the show. Can you have this person on? And it's like, oh, I haven't even thought to have that person on. Can you talk about this subject?
Mhm.
I didn't even thought to have this. So it's like it's sort of like the no agenda guys say that like they have producers, and sometimes it feels like I have producers where it's like I don't even have to come up with the idea for the show. It's just I just have to figure out who to interview, and then a lot of times they'll be like, well, you want to interview this guy, and here's his ad on Twitter and everything, like, or I already
Mhm.
spoke to him about it and everything. So that's pretty nice. And then I think that one of the things that I've helped do, and I'm seeing more people do, is innovate readings, doing like whole readings of books over multiple episodes and commenting on them. And I think not only does it get me reading books that I haven't read in years, or there are a couple of the books where I read live on air I hadn't read before,
Mhm.
uh, but it also introduces old books that are long out of print, very hard to find, extremely expensive, and you know there's a reason a lot of those books there's a reason why you can find 1984 and Animal Farm everywhere. There's reasons why you can't find Race War in High School for under $500, or like Icebreaker by Victor Suvorov for under $300. I mean,
Mhm.
they like to say, now I go back and read 1984 and I'm like, oh, this is quaint, this is nice. I lived through 2020. Okay, it's
Mhm.
like this is hilarious. But yeah, so yeah, no, it's nice to be reaching a whole bunch of new people. But how many people actually came over with me? Who were there in the Libertarian and ANCAP days, and as I progressed out of it, which took a good year and a half. taken the ride all the way with me, and they're still with me, and they're like, "Yeah, I remember I go all the way back to the Mance days, the Mance
Mhm.
Raider day," and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm glad you took the ride with me. It lets me know, when I know thousands of people took the ride with me, that lets me know I wasn't crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I've kind of laid out a little bit, the new thing is for the LPMC guys, which I have no personal problems with any of these people, but I saw they're putting together dissident media, and it kind of seems like, hey, we're trying to cast this wide net again to capture in some of this new dissident right deal. And I know that you're kind of rubbing elbows with a lot of people in that realm, but I know that you've also kind of made it clear that you like don't necessarily identify with that. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like it seems like a lot of people who were formerly libertarians are starting to move over into this space. And what I'm trying not to do is try to be cynical about it, but I also want to look at it objectively. And I don't want it to be something that's like, I left the left, where generally people who say I left the left never really left the left.
And that's how you get the woke right. Well,
Right.
I'll tell you, I saw that there's a dissident media. I don't even really, I don't like the term dissident.
Sure.
It doesn't really mean anything. It could be anything. So if they want to call it that, I don't care. I mean, it's nice to see the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian Party chair like sitting down with the presumptive presidential winner
Mhm.
and making moves. For that, I have to give Angela a lot of credit, because that's something I was saying to do 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
It was 2021 when I was leaving the Mises Caucus. Leaving the Mises Caucus, I'm like, well, yeah, have to, if you're gonna get anything accomplished, you're gonna have to do it through one of the 2 parties, and the left isn't, and the Democrat Party is not gonna have anything to do with you. So you might as well just start sidling up to the Republican Party. And it takes time, because Trump was out of the limelight at that time. Then he's back in the limelight, and it seems like he's at least listening. And
Mhm,
there's a lot of libertarian ideas that I still like. I find a hard time to believe any of them will work in a multicultural society with 350 million people, but at least they're trying. And one of the things that I'm happy about is that I know for a fact that a lot of the people who are not in power right now, but are in Trump's orbit, they listen to us over on our side of the right. I mean,
mhm,
JD Vance follows on Twitter like half of my mutuals. Um, a billionaire like Mark Andreessen is retweeting, talking about reading Burnham. He's been talking about that for a few years now, reading James Burnham. And it's like, and I know libertarians are like, he was a neocon. I'm like, there's still things there are things you can learn from people that you don't agree with 100%. I've read
mhm,
I've read Marx on my show, and I've read Lenin on my show, and I've covered Stalin, and I'm covering the biggest left Hegelian in the 20th century right now on my show. There are things that you can learn a lot from, that you can take from people that you don't agree 100% with. But they're a statist. Who cares? Um, but no, it's like now we're seeing that the Libertarian Party is doing what it should have done all along. It should always have been an appendage of the Republican Party, getting them to move towards, how whatever, and it may even be things that I don't agree with anymore, but I can still appreciate using power and using leverage, and even if you don't have leverage, just making friends.
mhm,
It's like I've said, I don't want any of these people in charge. I want my friends in charge. Yeah, I want my friends to rule. I want my friends to be in charge. I want a friend to be president. I want a
mhm,
friend to be mayor of my town. I want a friend to be sheriff. Just go make friends with these people. There's no Trump seems like one of the genuinely nicest people that I mean, if you really watch him, I think he's a genuinely nice person. Go make friends.
mhm.
He likes to he listens to people. He's interested in people. Um, you know, one of the things I always catch him saying these things that impress me. And by the way, I don't think Trump's like the savior or anything. I wish Trump was. I wish Trump was 10% of what people on the left say he is.
I agree. I agree.
Percent a fascist, you know. But watching him like at that drive-through thing, and these people come up and someone said, "Oh, I want to thank you for coming out here, you know, and talking to ordinary people like us." And the first thing out of his mouth, he doesn't even think about it. He goes, "You're not ordinary." And I'm like, that's somebody who's listening to the words that are coming out of somebody's mouth and repeating them back to them.
Mhm.
That shows empathy. That shows like you care. If you're just listening to people's words all the time to waiting to critique them, which is basically what the whole libertarian ANCAP world is you're listening to people's words so that you can tear them apart and then give them a critique and correct them. Well, that doesn't make friends.
Right.
Yeah, you want to make friends with people. Some of the people who was hardest the hardest thing to do to change their mind was they had to know that I cared about them first. And I do. I genuinely do care about people who come to me and they come to me honestly. And
Mhm.
they're like, "Look, I have a problem with something you said." Okay, let's talk about it. Talk it out and everything. And I'm not going to apologize for anything I said. I will try to explain why I said it. But genuinely, if you yeah, ask anyone who, I've gotten to know some people who are very, very successful and very, very wealthy. They'll tell you, I could not do this alone. I could not do this alone. I had to have people who liked me, people who were willing to help, people who I had to be friendly with in order to get where I am. He goes, and somebody will say like, and maybe at first I didn't really want to kiss up to this person, but then I found out, wow, I really like this person. And now they're like, if something happens to me that I consider to be, a success, that's the first person I call to tell, not my
Mhm.
family. It's this person I call to tell,
Mhm.
and that person will be genuinely happy for me as one of my parents will be.
Mhm.
If their parents are still alive, kind of thing. So I think that that's really important, and I think a lot of people don't get that.
Yeah, that's quite a bit, but yeah, I completely agree. I like to share good news with people, and I always love it when people feel like they can share good news with me because that means that like they understand that we have something good between us. Like I remember I messaged you and I can't believe that this is like a year and a half ago now when I was going to be an automotive instructor. Unfortunately, that went the way that it did. But just stuff like that. And you're like, hey man, I'm happy for you. Shit like that, means the world to me and to most other people. They give a shit to know that hey, somebody's out there listening and somebody gives a shit. And it's not like it takes that much time to just let some, hey, I hope you're doing well, man. Just sending that kind of text or message to somebody like that. Um, it's funny when I see you argue.
The way I look at it is people reach out to me all the time and say, "This is what just happened to me. I couldn't be happier. I just had a kid. I just bought a
Yeah,
house. I just got this job. I just did this amazing thing." The fact that they're sharing that with me is remarkable to me.
yeah,
I'm a stranger to most of these people, and they want to share this moment with me. Why would I share? The way I look at it is if I could ever meet that person in face to face and we're going to be friends. We're
yeah.
going to be friends. We're going to exchange numbers, and we'll probably be in contact a lot. And I
Mhm.
mean, that's important. And the problem I had with a lot of libertarianism is, and not a lot of the libertarian leaders. I mean, I couldn't have done the kind of things I did if Tom Woods and Dave Smith and Mark Claire, all these people, Scott Horton, they were all so friendly with me. And by the way, I'm still friendly with all of them. You know,
Right.
Tom Woods invites me to his Christmas parties. Okay, I get. We were texting today. I text Dave Smith all the time. Scott Horton and I were we were just talking the other day, texting back and forth about his new book and everything, and we had a couple laughs. Uh, Why? Because there are some things I've shared time with these people. We've shared I was when Dave's son was born and he was sick and everything, I was there. I wanted to be like, I'm praying for him. This Tom knows he can do ask me for anything. Scott knows they can ask me for anything. I'm going to be there for him. And there's something that's way in that sense, there's something that's way more important than politics. Because when it comes down to it,
Right.
if we really sat down and started comparing, we're probably like 20% away. Most people, I think, are 20% away in politics, unless you're extremely to the left. And I don't even know what extremely to the right is. You go to church?
Mhm. Yeah, anymore. Yeah, well, there's something that you highlighted right there that I really liked, and it's that, you know, I've heard you talk about this in the live streams too. When it came to like voting, I remember you you kind of went off, and rightfully so, about people who always say, "Oh, you get what you vote for." I could never stand that shit because it's like I don't think people literally go to the ballot box and think, "Oh, I want some third worlder to come up and punch me in the face." That is nobody's interest. Nobody wants that. And then I think later on in that
Nobody
live
wants
stream,
higher nobody's voting for higher taxes. No
right.
one's voting for no you're getting these things because it's a managerial regime. The regime is going to do what it does no matter who's in charge when I'm talking about voters.
Yeah.
The people, the elected officials. You have this system that works beneath the elected officials that doesn't move, hasn't moved since 1933, and that's what needs to be taken apart. So it's like I'm looking for a politician who recognizes that and is like, okay, well, here's my plan to try to take that apart. Because until that gets taken apart, you're not getting anything you want. I'm not getting a right wing, Catholic, whatever, and that's not exactly what I want. But
Mhm.
and no one's getting their trad cath, no one's getting their libertarianism, no one's getting until that managerial regime gets taken apart. And really, the only couple people I've heard talk about that managerial regime in any way and talk about it needs to be dismantling are Vivek Ramaswamy and JD Vance. So, do I think that if Trump gets elected and JD Vance is his vice president, that the managerial state's going to be destroyed? No, but I'm hoping that they can start chipping away at it. I mean, I know Elon Musk wants to. Walter Litnick, who is part of the transition team to the head of Cantor Fitzgerald, he's talked about it too, and he's actually going on podcasts talking about Bitcoin, talking about having
Mhm.
a Bitcoin being an M1 reserve, alongside gold and silver and oil, and trying to stop it so that war is not an M1 reserve anymore. And
Mhm.
he's talking about ways to make it so that he says we need to have a military. He goes, but there's no reason that we need to be paying for things that are out of date. And he actually comes up with these incredible like formulas where you could actually pay for the military without actually paying for the military. And it's just, I mean, these are the kind of people that I'm interested in. And none of the people I just mentioned are I would consider to be far right. So I
Mhm.
don't think Vivek, I think JD would probably be the closest person to meet politically.
Mhm.
And then Walter Lutnick is just he's he's an investor kind of guy, I think, who is um, probably in the classical liberal camp, but probably more realizing that classical liberalism is a trap. You
Mhm.
know, because if you classical liberalism is where you get the woke right.
Yeah, well, there were 2 things I wanna mainly talk to you about, and I'm glad you're kinda hitting on this. Um, when I first heard the term "woke right," I was so the first thing that came to my mind, oh, they have to be referring to the people who are rabid Zionists that anytime you say anything that even hints at like Jewish people as a whole, they call you an anti-Semite and say you should be silenced. Cause I mean, there's tons of governors and tons of Republicans that do shit like this all the time, but they weren't. And that was the strangest thing to me because I'm like, oh, this is like woke to a T, right? I mean, you literally have people saying, oh, Jewish kids feel uncomfortable on college campuses, so therefore we need speech laws and safe spaces. I'm like, that sounds pretty woke to me. So if you're saying woke right and that's who you're identifying, okay, I guess I agree. I don't know that I would like use that term, but it makes sense at least. But then Konstantin Kisin was the dude that coined the
Why
term,
do
I
we even
guess.
know that guy's name?
I don't
Why
know.
do we know that guy's name?
I
He's
have no idea.
unimpressive. He's
No.
not he's not intelligent at all. His father was an oligarch in Russia in the
Mhm,
90s. I mean, one of the most I mean, that's those people were evil. I mean, they were
mhm,
starving people to death. The average age of a Russian man dropped 12 years in the 1990s because of what those scumbags were fucking,
Mhm.
the 7 or 8 oligarchs like Kissinger's dad, how they were raping that country and sending all of its resources and everything to another much smaller country in the Middle East.
Mm, okay. So, what did you think of when you first heard this term woke right? Because I know that you've kind of dug into a lot of historical literature recently. So, I'm kind of curious, like, what your genesis of this whole situation is, like, when you look at it.
Well, okay, so it came out of the left didn't leave the left. I didn't leave the left me group.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, James Lindsay was the first one to come up with it. God, what a I'm
Mm,
so glad when libertarians were having him on his show and being like, "Oh my God, another leftist who is saying base things." Why do we always have to try to kiss the ass of leftists who are saying base things?
mm,
I say base things. Oh, you're on the right though. That means you're mean. But the left is he means well. He's just misguided. You remember that old thing? Oh,
mm,
the communists were they meant well. They were just misguided. Those fascists over there, they just wanted to kill
mm,
everybody. And
mhm,
but it's all those people who are like, I didn't leave the left. The left me. And so it's kissing. Then you look at people like James Lindsay, obviously, um, Dave Rubin, and all these guys who were leftists and who railed against the woke. The reason they started becoming friendly to the right is because, or conservatism, which I mean, I don't even think there's a right wing in this country, because I think
mm.
conservatism is left wing. Essentially, it's classical liberal. Classical liberalism is left wing. Sorry, I'm not. I'm not going to explain any further. But they all came over here, and then you have other people who did the same thing, who realized that this whole woke phenomenon and started to rail against it. Woke on the left, on college campuses, things like that. People
Yeah.
like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Okay, so everyone who's accusing everybody of being woke right is in that camp, but they call Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens woke right. Why? Because they're the only ones in that camp who are speaking out against Israel. They're the
Mm,
only ones that are questioning Jewish power.
mhm,
So, and then it's this complete thing where you're accuse your enemy of what you're doing. So they're against, oh, these people on campus who want to stifle free speech. And then you have somebody like a Jewish billionaire like Bill Ackman, who puts all this money into getting black people mostly fired from college campuses because they're not sufficiently shutting people down for free speech because they're talking about Israel. It's like, oh, I need a safe space because words are violence. Oh, you need a safe space, you poor, and so here comes Ben Shapiro, around the corner to make fun of you for wanting a safe space. But then someone says from the river to the sea, and you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, they want genocide, they want to kill it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think, and Dave did a stream on this a couple weeks ago that was really good. Glenn Greenwald did a 12-minute video on the woke right that, I mean, just nailed it. I mean he nailed it perfectly. It's all the people who are screaming woke right are the woke right, because
mhm,
they're the ones who are, I don't care what you call me. If you can call me anything you want, I don't want to shut it down. You can say I want to kill half Spanish, Polish, Hungarian guys. I think they should, and I'll be like, come and get me.
yeah.
I don't, I don't, I'm not gonna, if I had power, I wouldn't try to shut you down. I'd be laughing at you.
Mhm,
But these people don't have, the only power they have is basically try to get people canceled and things like that.
mhm,
So when you see woke right being thrown at somebody, whoever the term woke right is getting thrown at is a critic of Israel. Whoever is accusing someone of being woke right is pro-Israel, is a Zionist, is a full-on Zionist, which Konstantin Kisin is, which Ben Shapiro is, which Dave Rubin is, which I don't know that James Lindsay is like a hardcore Zionist, but he will not question, he won't question Zionism at
He
all.
said something, and this was kind of I had lots of moments of I was always skeptical of him, but I remember him saying something to the degree of like the Palestinians will genocide Israel. I'm like, in what world are you living in where that's even a remote possibility?
The Israelis have killed 1,000 Palestinians in the last 7 days. They've killed 1,000 Palestinians in the last 7 days. There's a hospital that they attacked, that the IDF attacked, and they shot the son of the director of the hospital right in front of them. They just executed him right in front of them. They're bombing Baalbek today in Lebanon. One of the classic, there are megalithic structures there that defy reason. And then they're going into Lebanon, which is a 30% Christian country, and just destroying Beirut, southern Beirut. I mean, I understand the difference. Southern Beirut's mostly Shia. That's where most of their bombs are dropping. But still, I mean, these people are just monsters. I mean, how am I supposed to look at? They can drop. It was, I think, Colonel McGregor said 80 2-ton bombs on 5 apartment buildings or 6 apartment buildings. I mean, that's insane. Okay.
Mhm.
Yet, and we're supposed to go, well, there were tunnels under there, which there were. There were Hezbollah tunnels under there. But wouldn't it be really nice if you made sure before you weren't going to kill 1,900 people in one strike who they're just trying to live their lives. They're not hiding the people. They're not hiding Hezbollah there. They're just people trying to live their lives. If there was a serial killer under your house and they bombed your fucking house because they needed to get that serial killer, you might have something to say like, hey, why don't you come knock on the door?
All right.
And then when Iran launches, I think 180 missiles at Israel, and how many civilians did they kill?
They killed one Palestinian.
Yeah, there was one Palestinian that got right. So they launched 100 missiles. I think 120 landed. No matter what you've heard, it was 120. I mean, I've seen the footage. It's just one after another. All military targets.
Mm-hmm.
All military or some kind of infrastructure target that would be used for the military. They didn't aim at civilians. So let me just take those two. I have to choose between the people who are dropping bombs on residential apartment buildings and those who are letting the bombs are coming in the first place, and then hitting military targets. And they only kill one person that Israel doesn't care about and Israel considers to be subhuman. Looking from the outside without knowing the players in that, I would, well, here are the barbarian. Oh no, but human shields. Go fuck yourself with your human shields bullshit. Where did you get that from? What what newspaper? New York Times? Who owns it? The Sulzberger family?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you get that from? I mean, come on. People, there are tribes out there that act in their own interest. And let's remember what Thomas Massey told us. Everyone in Congress has an 8-pack babysitter, except him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So.
Well, and one thing that I've always made this argument because it's so frustrating when people say, "Oh, well, the IDF is the most moral army because they drop leaflets." It's like, okay, well, if I were to come to your house and tell you, "Hey, if you're not gone within 3 hours, I'm going to come here and blow your entire room to smithereens," does that make it okay? I understand people want to separate morality and war and peacetime, but you can't fucking kill kids and you can't bomb hospitals with civilians in it and take out
Oh,
maternity wards and every single
60%,
functional hospital.
60% of the victims in Gaza are women and children.
Yep.
And here's the thing, okay? They're not upset about that. They don't consider them to be it's like, well, we were trying to get somebody who's responsible for the death of a lot of people. And these people were in the way. We feel really bad about it, but it had to be done. God have mercy on our soul. No, that's not how it's you're either a cheerleader for them or you're an anti-Semite, you're woke right, you're not even allowed to be neutral. We found that out after October 7th. After
Yeah.
October 7th, you found out it wasn't enough to be anti-Semitic. You need to be like philo-Semitic. You have to be completely on their side. And I'm sorry. I mean, I have never, ever, ever, ever I've never made excuses for Israel. I've World War II was fought because you're not allowed to have ethno states anymore. Germany needs to be destroyed. England was an ethno state when it started. In 1948, the Windrush ships started showing up with Jamaicans, and then it was Europe had to become this, sea of mud, basically, to destroy them. And then you look at, some of the biggest, like people talk about Catholic charities in this country, and then you look at their board, and it's like, who are all these Catholics whose last names end with Steenberg and Witz? And then you look at Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, which even Chris Rufo, who's basically accusing everybody of being an anti-Semite now if they're against Israel, said in an article that he wrote recently that the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society was responsible for bringing all the Haitians into Charleroi, Pennsylvania. Well, it's technically Jewish Family and Children's Services, which is a division of Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, HIAS, which our national security advisor, Alejandro Mayorkas, is he head of Department of Homeland Security? That he's the head of Department of Homeland Security. Yeah. He used to be the president of the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. And you wonder why our borders are open, and you wonder why,
Yeah, there's always been something odd with me about the Republican Party being so fervently Zionist, but all the Zionist Israelis and Jews are all very, very pro open borders. I mean, you had even had Netanyahu saying, "Yeah, I think the rest of the world's going to have to take on these Palestinians as we ethnically cleanse them out of Palestine."
Well, I mean, no one wants them. And there's a reason for that. The Palestinians are not Palestinian leadership they're not good people historically. I was talking with a friend of mine, Hunger. They're put it this way: they're not good for your country. I was talking about my friend Hunger, who's he has dual citizenship in Lebanon, and he goes to Lebanon all the time. He has family in Lebanon. I think he has a business in Lebanon, and he said that what really started this whole thing with Lebanon and Hezbollah and everything, basically Hezbollah came into existence because Palestinians were ethnically cleansed out of Israel into Lebanon. And then they started causing a lot of shit. And I've heard the same thing about when they go into Egypt, they become very subversive. And which, Sheldon Richman thinks that the Palestinians are actually the real Jews, that they've been there for 2,000 years and they converted to Islam over the time, which would explain a lot. But you find out that wherever they go, they cause problems. And I'm not saying that I like the Palestinians. I'm saying that they're fighting against what I consider to be my enemies, Zionists, who control the banks, control Hollywood, control pornography, gave us feminism. I'm not saying this. Dennis Prager said this. Dennis Prager is the one who said that every ism except for Nazism it came from Jews and everything. I'm like, okay, then I'm going to believe you. I'm going to choose to believe you. Okay?
Yeah.
Was that a good thing? Was feminism a good thing for this country? Was the Civil Rights Act a good thing for this country? Gay rights, was that a good thing for this country? Now, I'm one of these people who I don't think we should be knocking on gay people's doors and pulling them out and black bagging them and taking them and killing them. But go back in the closet.
Yeah.
Really, go back in the closet. I mean, if we can't have open degeneracy, and we can't have this. It's not good for the culture. I mean, ever since all of this happened, has the culture gotten better? Has government gotten better? Governments used it as a way to take more power
Mhm.
over us. And that's one thing that like a lot of libertarians can't figure out because they want to make everything about economics. Economics is just the tool, is just one of the tools they use.
Mhm.
But really what they have to do is they have to set up a culture in which they can use that economics to start funneling money all over the place. And you have to create minorities and victim groups that we we need money for them, and they need our prayers, and we really have to be nice to them and everything. It's like, I mean, a couple of years ago I lost a Twitter account because I pointed out that it was only gay men who were getting monkeypox. And then
True.
monkeypox exited the news the day after an article came out saying that dogs and children were getting monkeypox. Okay, what am I supposed to put together there?
Right.
What points am I supposed to connect there?
Mhm.
And I'm sorry. You can you can have the greatest economics in the world, and and then a bunch of people come in and go, well, if you have good economics, it makes people make good decisions, and people get look what happens when someone wins the lottery. Usually they go broke in like what, 2 3 years.
Mhm.
Alcoholism, drug use. Oh, that's not what makes people happy. That's not what changes people's I forget what's the word the Austrian economists use. Their
Time preference?
well, I mean, we know most people have a high time preference,
Right.
but I forget what I'll remember. I'll remember it probably as soon as we log off. But but yeah, I mean, it's what you're looking at is, I mean, I can understand good economics, and I'd love to have good economics in this country too. But good economics is not going to help if you have you're not going to fix the economics in this country, and then all of a sudden people are going to get better. People are
Mhm.
going to somehow stop being sinners or whatever degenerates. They're not going to have poor impulses. They're not going to stop acting in degenerate ways. I mean, there could be not enough money for them to do it. But then again, if they don't have enough money to do it, wouldn't crime go up? Wouldn't there be, wouldn't they seek to steal? I mean, and that's not me advocating for giving people money. I mean, I'd rather just kill them, really. But I mean, I mean, or put them on an island,
Mhm.
empty the Indian reservations and put them in there or something like that, and build an electric fence around it. I mean,
Mhm.
do something. Do so. We can't live like this anymore. I mean, people are. Yeah, I love how people were screaming, "Oh, the crime rate was going down. The crime rate was going down." And then recently, it comes that the FBI was just absolutely hiding, and it was like 3 times higher than it actually was.
Mhm.
It's like, come on, why is this happening? It's not because we don't have Bitcoin. It's not
Mhm.
because Bitcoin isn't the money of the land. Okay,
Yeah.
Bitcoin doesn't fix people's doesn't fix people's inclinations.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you go to any major city across the US right now. Pittsburgh, I'm lucky, is still kind of a nice city, but I mean, I was in New York for a General Motors training thing, and I remember seeing people, nobody who looked like me. I mean, like the people who were obviously like mechanics and salesmen mostly, or average white guys. You obviously like some black and Mexicans filled in there too. But like when there were just hordes of immigrants standing in a New York hotel, it's like, this is kind of strange. And none of them speak English. So I was like, well, what the hell are you doing here?
I, Immigration is the number one thing. If you want prices to go down, deport 20 million people. If you want prices to go down on housing, if you want prices to go down on food, they could always produce less to keep the prices high, something like that. But definitely housing. I mean, they would have to make more. They would have to immediately build more housing in order for housing prices not to go down. You're also going to solve the homeless problem. I mean, one of the reasons you have a homeless problem in California is one, people can't afford to live out there. Two, regulations stopping people from new building, and three, the weather. If you're going to be homeless somewhere, at least, damn, do it where you can look good. You know,
Mhm.
do it where you can get a good tan and the weather is nice and you can look good. But immigration is the biggest thing. I mean, we just, my family, my mom's family has been here since the early 1800s. I
Mhm.
fought, people on that side who fought in the war, the horrible, the worst war we ever got into.
Mhm.
And I'm just I mean, there's some people on my dad's side of the family that I'd like to see go back.
Mhm.
Even though they're citizens, I'd like to see them go back. But I mean, really,
Mhm.
we can't. We have too many people that are not from a culture that prizes anything. My biggest problems with libertarians and open borders has always been that, I was an open borders libertarian at one time. I thought it was, that's the only way because, fuck the police, and the police are the ones that would have to patrol the borders, and fuck the state because the state would be doing it. And if you're a libertarian and you're like hoping for a libertarian society, especially an ANCAP, like, I mean, I've had ANCAPs tell me on Twitter, like recently, say, we're going to see ANCAPistan in my lifetime. And I'm like, you out of your fucking mind? I mean, are you
It's not gonna
literally retarded?
yeah, you're not gonna be there, though. None of those
Yeah,
people saying that are gonna be there.
you're literally retarded. I mean, go ask your leaders if they think. If they ask Tom Woods, ask Dave Smith, ask Scott Horton if they think you're going to see anarcho capitalism in their lifetime, on some mass scale. You know what I mean? See it on a small scale.
Yeah.
You have to. I've become less and less of a Thomas Sowell fan over time because I realize he just wrote the same book over and over again for the most part, like in the last 20 years. But he
Mhm.
did say that there's no such thing as a perfect. There's only trade-offs.
Right.
And that's what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to figure out trade-offs. You're going to have to figure out what you're willing to put up with. I mean, you even have trade-offs if you want to look at like a Hoppian covenant community. You're going to give up some kind of liberty that should be afforded to everyone according to libertarians, so that you can have the safety of community of like-minded people. And you're not all going to be 100% like-minded. But getting back to my biggest criticism of open borders is you're importing people who not only is, and I'll tell people this, and I'll give you the rebuttal.
Yeah, you're good.
You're importing people that you're going to have to turn into libertarians.
Mhm.
That you're going to have to turn them into libertarians. They're not inclined to libertarianism where they come from. They may be, if they're escaping someplace violent, all they're looking for is state protection. They're not looking to hear about private police. Okay, so, and then not even a midwit, this has to be someone with an 85 IQ, God bless them, will say, well, there's people here that, most of the people here aren't interested in libertarianism. I'm like, don't make my argument for me. It's like, well, exactly. Why would you want more? If you're
Mhm.
saying it's okay for more to come because there's people here who will never accept it, or who you're going to have to, you're the one who's blackpilled
Right.
because you're telling me that you don't ever believe this is going to happen. It's never
Right.
going to happen for you. All it is an identity. It's a religion for you. You
Mm.
have no religion. You have no identity. Maybe you have no family, no one you love. And it's the people in your group chat who you all believe in the same thing. And the reason you believe that, the reason you won't step outside of your box that you've built for yourself is because you're scared that you'll be kicked out of the group chat. Look, I've been kicked out of a lot of group chats. It's liberating
Mhm.
because those group chats become echo chambers after a while. And why would you want to just continually talk to people who are just going to confirm your biases? You want
Mhm.
to be challenged. The first time someone told me, you got to read The Machiavellians by James Burnham, I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to change my mind. Then you read it and you're like, oh, this is how power has worked since the dawn of time.
Mhm.
And it's not how, and Hoppe probably has a better idea of how it works than any other libertarian, but it's always going to be this small group of people who are in charge because three people can three people can organize better than 350 million.
Mhm.
So then you start looking at that and you're like, oh, so it's always this like elite group. They may not be elite morally, they may not be elite metaphysically, but they're the ones that are in charge. They're the ones who've taken over. Now, they may be shitty like the ones we have now, we have to get rid of, but that's why you have to raise up other elites. And actually, when it comes to like Silicon Valley people like Mark Andreessen and other people like that, it looks like there are another group of elites that are on the charge, and they're not 100% in my camp, but they're a hell of a lot better than these friggin' dick
Mhm.
chopping, tit chopping monsters that are in charge right now.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I kinda noticed it seems like they're a lot more indifferent rather than actively hostile, which, I mean, you gotta walk before you
I'll
can
take it.
run. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll take it.
exactly. And one thing that I wanted to hit on before we kinda move on to they is, you've made the point before, just give those Haitians economics in one lesson, they'll become libertarians, but what does libertarianism require? It requires a lot of abstract thought. When you're dealing with people who literally have an IQ of 65
65.
to 85. Let's be honest,
They
these
can't
people really
entertain they can't entertain hypotheticals.
right.
That's the thing is when your IQ is that low, you can't entertain hypotheticals, and that's all like libertarianism is.
Yep.
It's hypothetically if this thing was, but they can't do that. So
Mhm,
what you're going to end up, what you realize when you really start studying people, and I'm not saying people can't, their IQs can't be raised. I mean, there it's not always that England had the average IQ that it had now. It was much lower. Well, over time, but under the right circumstances. But Hades had some bad circumstances for 25 years of their own doing, mind you. But you're not going to be able. What you realize is that if you want order, if you want the world to be the way you want it to, whether that be libertarian, whatever it is, you're basically going to end up having to tell people what to believe and
mhm,
how to act. And that goes against the fundamental, one of the fundamental keys of libertarianism, which is the non-aggression principle. Is the non-aggression principle is it would be a sin to tell people that they need to believe in this. I remember I was interviewing a very popular libertarian. I'm not going to say his name because this could potentially make him. I'm not insult. I don't want to insult somebody,
yeah,
but I mean this is a long time ago. I said, well, we can't force people to be libertarians. We can't have a libertarian dictatorship. That would be, that would be a contradiction. Well, people are, if 2020 taught us anything, the majority of people are being told or waiting to be told what to do and what to believe.
right,
You got to get your people if you got to get your people in charge
mhm.
and start telling people what to believe and what to do.
I
And if
think
that is to don't hurt people and don't take their stuff, well, you're going to have to you're gonna have to tell people that, and you're gonna have to tell people that's the way we do it from now on. And if you don't do it that way, there will be consequences. Isn't it funny how like they'll mention like you'll hear about the most libertarian places on the planet, like Singapore. Oh, you can walk in and start a business in a day. You can open a bank account in the airport on a stopover. That's how liberal it is there when it comes to banking regulations, economic regulations. You spit gum on the sidewalk, you get caned. Well, there's a reason why Singapore can have a multicultural society. It's a multicultural Asian society, and for people who don't know it, Asian groups do not like each other. There is a lot of tension between different Asian groups,
right.
and they get along because the state will fuck you up if you step out of line.
Mhm,
And it's still someplace that, libertarians talk about. Liechtenstein is the same way. Liechtenstein is probably, considering what Prince Alois and his dad Hans, what they believe. They're friends with Hans Hermann Hoppe. They understand Austrian theory. They understand you still pay the price if you step out of line there.
mhm.
and you have to. And the state's going to do it. It's not going to be some private police force. And see, that's the thing is you can't ever have a private police force because if private property is like your ultimate goal, it's like, well, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. And you have somebody who has, a piece of land and they're hurting somebody on that land. Well, somebody has to be able to make the decision that an exception is going to be made and we're going to go in there and we're going to stop it. And
Right.
we're going
And
to punish the person who's doing it.
if you left that the non-aggression principle, then if that's your first principle, that would tell you that that's wrong to do that. I did a podcast a couple weeks ago called "Why I'm Not an Anarchist Anymore," and honestly, I do think it is justified for a state to use violence to stop somebody from committing an abortion. I mean, we just have a culture now that doesn't really believe in that, but I think that's perfectly reasonable to say no, you can't kill that child. Or in situations like drag queen story hour, or where kids are being exposed to things that they shouldn't be, why wouldn't we shut those things down? I mean, those are the most vulnerable group of people amongst us. Do we not want to protect our future?
Well, I mean, what those things do is when you have people who can kill their unborn children, people who can, you know, men can dress up as women and shake their dicks in front of, and that's what ends up happening at these drag queen store. A lot of these drag queen story hours, not all of them, but still, it shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be done. It goes against nature. Anyone who argues that that's not against, oh well, it's like well, there's you can go back and the Talmud has 68. Oh, you want to bring that up, huh? All right. We can have a talk about that if you want. You can't have people doing this. It causes chaos. It causes people who instinctively know that that there's a binary, male and female.
Mhm.
It causes chaos. And the state, and especially the managerial state, like, I'm sure Hoppe, if anyone has read Democracy, the God That Fails, knows that a king doesn't want chaos in his kingdom. It's beneficial for him, for business, for everything, to have order. Chaos, when you have a managerial state, when there's really no one in charge and it's just this machine that's keeping on going no matter who gets elected, they thrive off of chaos because it's going to cause problems, and somebody's going to call them to step in. They're basically creating their own. It's like a drug dealer giving away the first hit for free.
Mhm.
You're creating your own problems. And saying, well, just end the state, bro. Well, okay, great. Philosophically, sure. But how about we talk about reality and how to deal with it in reality right now? Well, dealing with it in reality would be mean. You've you're the state's best friend. That's what I've said about so many libertarians. When you hear them talk and they talk about how we need to be able to free to do this and the border needs to be open and everything. You're just growing the state. I can show you, whatever you're advocating for. Most of the time, what you're advocating for is just growing the state, is making the state bigger. I mean, it's like, oh well, we could have endless immigration if we just get rid of if we just get rid of handouts and everything. Okay, get rid of the handouts. It's like, okay, you can't even get rid of the handouts, and you can't get rid of the entitlements, and you're talking about getting rid of the state. I mean, it took a war to get rid of slavery. What do you think it's going to take to get rid of the state? Not only that, if the state did collapse tomorrow, the overwhelming majority of people are going to be asking for another state.
All
If
right.
you don't have something built up already, if you don't have control of their minds already, when it collapses, they're just going to go to what they know.
Mhm.
And if they don't know what you know, if they're not desiring what you desire, they're just going to go back to what you're left out in the cold. I mean, the state is not going to collapse tomorrow and everybody's going to be like, we should give that anarcho capitalism thing a try. They're going to be like, no, feed me. I
Right.
need to be fed. Whoever, who rules? Whoever can feed people.
Mhm.
That's who rules. Whoever can feed people or say that they can feed people or give the illusion that they can feed people.
Right.
If you're telling people, well, everybody just wants to be free, deep down inside, everyone's a libertarian. I mean, maybe until a virus comes along and then everyone's hiding in their house and they're listening to their government and they're watching TV to find out if they can go to church. Okay? So until you can solve that problem, your little libertarian. I mean, let me tell you something. If I got the kind of world I wanted, it would look way more libertarian than this right now.
Mhm.
It would be a lot more libertarian because it would be very narrow. And you're going to need narrowness if you're going to have that kind of liberty. You're going to need people who can self rule. Most people can't self rule, which is why I think Hoppe, came down to the 10,000 Liechtensteins thing where local, if you want to have your I've been to towns. My town is the town I live in is 2,400 people. It's in the middle of Alabama. We have probably 1,000 chickens to every person in this county. A thousand chickens for every one person in this county. Probably 100 head of cattle for every. I mean, that's where hardly when people get together around here, politics is not the first thing they talk about.
Right.
They talk about, well, they're coming to take the chickens today, so we have to, we'll be shut down. The chicken house will be shut down for a couple months, and then we'll get a new influx in and everything. Are you doing meat birds this year? Are you doing eggs? How are the cattle doing? When are they going? That's the first thing, and then they'll probably at some point talk about national politics or something like that. We're completely apolitical around here. I mean, it's just when it comes to, we don't even know. We don't even know most of us don't even really know who the mayor is. Now, I know who the mayor is. I know who the sheriff is. I know
Mhm.
that's just because that's who I am. I want to know who these people are. Most people don't care because you don't have to. No one's going to step out of line around here.
Right.
Everyone knows where everyone lives. It's so funny when I moved here and I've been here. We've been here about a year and a half. I told somebody I was eating at a restaurant in town and they're like, "Oh, where are you moving?" And I told them, "Oh, I know that house. Yeah, that's the house that's right here." Yeah, and
Mhm.
they know the address. So everyone knows everyone. That's a way that you can have a culture where it's very libertarian around here. I've been to
Mhm.
towns in Ohio, in Southern Ohio, where it was very, very libertarian, where it's like people didn't lock doors. No one sped. It was just basically, you had to deal with life.
Mhm.
Well, that's what happens when you break things down into small, homogenous groups. When you don't have different, even ethnic groups you know, vying for supremacy over another in politics, in whatever. It's funny to me when like libertarians will be like, take Sweden. You know, Sweden was completely free, one of the most free market countries ever, up until a certain point when they decided that they were going to start giving away and they were going to become basically a welfare state and they would have a big welfare state and everything like that. But up until that point, it was great. I'm like, what else about tell me about Sweden's demographics up until that point? Was
Mhm.
everyone Swedish? Why does Iceland have like one murder a year? And it's like usually a tourist who does it. Why did a cop in Iceland somebody went crazy, pulled out a shotgun, cop showed up, had to kill him. Why did the cop apologize profusely to the family, go to the funeral, and then retire? Why
Probably 'cause
was
he
he
knew the
torn up
guy.
about that? Because it's an island of 300,000 people who they have a dating app where you put your name in there and they figure out how related you are to each other. These are people who don't kill each other. They're not looking to cheat. Sure, you're gonna get some cheating done. That's just family. I mean, it's just yeah,
Mhm.
but it's not like friggin' Camden, New Jersey. It's not like Cleveland, Ohio. It's not like south side of Chicago. It's not like,
Right.
Hunts Point in the Bronx. Well, why? Because it's a bunch of people who know how to act. and they're all related to each other. And not all people are the same because you can go into some neighborhoods in this country that are all one demographic and they're killing each other. So that plays into it too, but that's mean to talk about. Or it's socioeconomic factors, which is the main go-to for most libertarians because that's what and I want to shit on libertarians. I mean, I like them.
Mhm.
I'm looking at what Angela's doing with the LP and talking to Trump and having dinner with Trump, and I think it's fucking amazing. You
Yeah.
have to be able to talk to power, and you have to be able to willing to bend and willing to go, what are the most important values I have? I mean, are all these political values I have that people are like, and that's one thing. That's another thing that a lot of people choose libertarianism for because they have no religion. And then they basically, libertarianism gives them some sense of like, they can like quote morality now. Oh, you're
Mhm.
immoral because you want to take stuff from people. Okay. You're thou shalt not steal. What's that based upon? What? Oh,
Y
well, I just say it. Okay. Bang. I'm taking everything now. Oh, well, it's based upon, the God of the Bible, and he said, "Thou shalt not steal." So I don't think we should steal. Okay, well, tell me more. If you're just gonna, I mean, if you're just gonna be like, well, it's wrong to hurt people and take their stuff. Well, why? Why? Well, because people. No, why? You're gonna have to give me. You have to give me something outside of reason.
Mhm.
I mean, then you just become an objectivist and you're an Ayn Randite, and you're just screaming about screaming about one world government and the police running around enforcing reason, which is what those lunatics talk about
Yeah, and they're always rabbit scientists too. It's just it always cracks me up
every
how that
single
works.
time.
Mhm.
Every single time.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to hit on with you as well was when people say they. So right now, we've kind of danced around elite theory here, but I think to your point, 2020 really showed you that people are looking for elites, right? And much to another point that you were making is that basically if the state were to collapse tomorrow, people are gonna, basically look to elites to see what we're going to do next. Um, I've heard you and a lot of other people kind of, in the dissident right space, if you will, the loose hodgepodge of people who are in there talk about the PayPal mafia. And there's people that I like and people that I'm skeptical of and people that I'm less skeptical of.
Me
But
too.
when it comes to the whole when it comes to the whole Trump situation, and I think you and I probably agree on this, but I do want to get your expanded thoughts on this. We hear a lot about the city of London, right? There's obviously the Israeli lobby, and then we have the PayPal mafia. To me, when I look at all this stuff, the guys who like the PayPal mafia always go all in on, oh, well, these guys are going to be steering the next Trump administration because look, JD Vance is in there, and I think JD Vance is actually legitimately impressive. But then, obviously, there's a lot of people who just go straight to, oh, the Jews control everything, right? And they're 100% in on that. I don't say I lean I don't I'm not 100% in that camp, but I lean towards that because we have a precedent of Trump being very pro-Israel and then Miriam Adelson kind of following him around and donating assloads of money to his campaign. Not that nobody else is donating, but she seems to be a constant figure, and once again, we have record of this. And then the city of London, that's the one I'm most ignorant on. But once again, we hear that the city of London is a lot of what drives like a lot of global monetary policy. So, what are your thoughts amongst that, and not just like the Trump camp, but overall, like who's pulling the strings when people say they?
I mean, I think it's a fight. Yeah, I think
Okay.
he's taken money from a lot of people. I think he's taken money from Silicon Valley types. I think he's taken
Mhm.
money from Adelson, from Ackman. Um, the thing is that it's hard to tell. It's I'm I'm one of those people who thinks that things can only get better if the regime in charge is out of power.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are out of the White House. That means that like the executive branch of government has 2.8 million employees. I don't care what it does to the economy. About 2.6 million of them need to go. Needs to get it down to about 200,000. If the military is included in there, then it'd be like, I would say 50,000 plus the military. And you got to get rid of a lot of those military people because, I mean, they try to trans the whole fucking military. And it was like somebody asked me, I think it was Tim Kelly said, so Trump said that he wished he had generals like Adolf Hitler did. And I said, oh, you mean he wished he didn't have he wished he had generals that weren't trans? Or generals like Milley, who talks about his white privilege.
Mhm.
You know, so, and then Tim asked me another question that was, which is a good question. It's a good question, and it's why I want to see Trump as president, just because there's possibilities that can happen. I don't think anything is certain. Tim asked me the question. He said, "Can you do elections matter when you have an occupied government?" You know, so
Mhm.
I'm hoping that it's more the Elon Musk crowd, the Mark Andreessen crowd that is going to be influencing. I still don't think Trump likes war. JD Vance clearly said, I think it was on the Tim Dillon show, that
Yeah.
he doesn't want he doesn't want to see war,
He said
especially
our
war
interests,
for
yeah, our
Israel.
interests are in, our interests are not in war with Iran, and I share that instantly
Right.
because it's
Right.
that
Yeah,
is
of course.
very important for someone like him in his position to say that.
Right. So I don't think that Trump likes war. I don't think that, everybody's like, well, Miriam Madelson's giving him all this money. So I mean, her husband gave him all the money in 2016 and he didn't go to war for Israel. So yeah, he bombed Syria, but it was one of those we need to save face kind of bombings where he just bombed like um
Mhm.
empty runways and stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
after they killed Soleimani, which is probably his biggest two to me his two biggest mistakes in the first had to do with Iran was killing Soleimani, which I think he did at the behest of somebody inside the Iranian government who was just basically jealous or wanted Soleimani out of the way, and and getting out of the JCPOA, the
Mhm.
Iran deal.
Right.
But I still think that he doesn't like war because he's a businessman, and business no matter what. Yeah, there is a small group of business people in this country that love war. Most people don't like war. Bankers, people think bankers, why would a banker like war? They're probably lending money to people on both sides of the war, which means that they're not going to get paid back from one of them.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. You're not going to make enough money. You're not going to make enough profit off of lending to one if you know you're not going to get paid from the other one.
Mhm.
So that doesn't make any sense to me. People were always like, "Oh, well, both sides of World War II were financed by this one person and everything like that." It's like, well, someone didn't get paid, or if they did get paid, I mean, it was way down the line, and
Yeah.
bankers want instant gratification for the most part. I just don't see. I don't see Trump wanting to get us into wars unless we absolutely have to. It's just I'm looking at his history,
Mhm.
and as far as like the people who are influencing him now, I'm hoping, and it looks more than anything, at least from the outside, that Elon Musk is the one who's probably influencing him the most.
Mhm.
And if Elon Musk is influencing him the most, he wants to create that Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, and start start co- cutting costs and cutting. It's going to reduce the size of government.
Mhm.
My ultimate goal is that somebody like Vivek, who has clearly said on like Sean Ryan's podcast that the administrative state has to be dismantled, hoping he's going to have some kind of say in it. All you can do is hope because you just don't know. You
Mhm.
don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they're gonna probably try and just keep trying to kill him. I mean, I don't even know. I, I'm I'm of the opinion, and I'm not making predictions, but I honestly think that like next Tuesday by midnight, we're gonna know he won.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody. I think you have this very small segment of the population that's completely anti-Trump. They'll vote for they'll vote for anyone who isn't Donald Trump. But I think for the most part, I think people are going to vote for him, and I don't even know.
Mhm.
I don't think cheating is going to work. I don't think cheating will happen in Pennsylvania because Josh Shapiro wants to run for president in 4 years, and
Right.
if he cheats Kamala, then he won't be able to run in 2028. Same thing with the witch Gretchen Whitmer up in Michigan. I think cheating is going to happen in Arizona, and Arizona will go blue. Um,
Mhm.
but I think that Florida is going to be red. Um, Something that I saw said that if Trump wins Pennsylvania, Kamala has a 4% chance of winning. So I think it's gonna be over that night. I think we're gonna be, I'm doing a live stream with the Old Glory Club. We're gonna have people in and out all night and everything. I think we're gonna be over. We'll be over by midnight. I think
Mhm.
it'll be called by midnight. Even with, I think it's gonna be so out of balance that the mail-in ballots won't even matter anything.
Hmm.
And then no one's allowed. The Supreme Court just or the Fifth Circuit just passed that law, which is national, that no ballots after election day are going to be counted. So
Mhm.
nothing after the close of polls is going to be counted. I don't think that they're going to be able to cheat this time. You don't rob the same bank twice in a row.
Mhm.
You wait a little bit. So I think there are I think Jeff Bezos, with some of the things he's done at the Washington Post, in the last couple weeks, has already resigned himself to the fact that Trump is gonna win. I think you can see a lot of people who believe that Trump is gonna win. Kamala has gone from opportunity economy to everyone's a fascist but me, and, I mean, she's basically had a meltdown ever since that Bret Baier interview. I mean,
Mhm.
she has looked like she acts like a monster. And there may be some people out there who want her to be that way and want to see are okay with that. But even Trump, when you look at Trump, I mean, he's not nearly from like 2016 when he seemed a lot more on edge and a lot meaner. Like he was, yeah. It seems like he's having a good time. Seems like ever since Butler, he's like calmed down. It seems like he's
Mhm.
having fun. And I think that comes off, and I think the more fun he has, the more they call him a fascist, which is just, I mean, look, man, I wish he was. I really wish he was, because
Yeah.
I said in my Substack this morning, this government is so criminal. They've done so many criminal things, like this thing that just came out that James Comey had, like, put honeypots into the Trump campaign in 2016. Even before the whole Crossfire Hurricane official thing started, he had off the books people in there, trying to inform and also insert into the campaign things. And yeah, you have to take somebody like from government who's done really, really awful shit, someone from academia and someone from like the press, and like put them on trial and try, people who have committed crimes, have like
Mhm.
very public trials and then put them in jail. People need to know that they can't do this anymore. That they can't just stand there and over again say that someone is accuse someone of being a Russian asset, and while they're taking money from who knows whatever interest group to do this. And there's unless he does that, unless they have the whatever this team that's going to be informing him, unless they are willing to really punish their enemies and do things that have never been done before, like getting rid of entire departments. I mean, Curtis Yarvin said a few years ago, I mean, he's been saying this for years. The State Department doesn't even need to exist. Just
Mhm.
the president and 3 of his advisors on Zoom. You don't need that bill. You turn that building into like a museum or something. And but is it gonna happen? That's the question. I want it to, but I'm not
Mhm.
Pollyanna. I don't I I'm not nothing. I'm not one of the nothing ever happens bros, but
Mhm.
I'm definitely one of the ones who's like, we're definitely not gonna get 100% of what we want, and we should be damn happy if we get 30% of what we want because
Mhm.
they've been designing this government the way it operates since FDR died. FDR had the power of a king. He could do whatever he wanted. I mean, when you look at how many executive orders he wrote, it's it's like 4 times more than every other president, maybe 3. He was a king. And when he died, he did not leave his power to Harry Truman. He did not pass his power down. That power went down into the departments. That's how we have the some people call it the deep state.
Mhm.
I like the managerial state makes more sense to me because it's just ruled by managers, and all they're doing is they're managing to keep their jobs and keep this thing going so that they can do whatever they want. And it doesn't matter if a D gets elected or a Republican. Yeah, there's the old joke in Washington D.C. You go to a Georgetown bar, and it's like, "Hey, who are you voting for?" And the person looks at you like, there was that the Cheney biopic they did a few years ago, where I think what's his name? Christian Bale gained like 150 pounds to play Cheney or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I
Um,
remember.
there's a beginning of that when he meets Don Rumsfeld, and they're talking, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna do this. Okay, what are we, a Democrat or a Republican?" And he just looks at him and laughs. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when to the administrative state. It doesn't. To guys like that who power is all that matters. I mean, look, Victoria Nuland served in the Bush White House and the Biden White House. It doesn't matter. She's responsible for the she's responsible for the Ukraine war. Almost
Absolutely.
single-handedly responsible for the for the Ukraine war. That I mean, oh, we're gonna have a coup. We're gonna overthrow the elected president, put our own puppets in there, and then we're gonna have them start killing Russians in the Donbass to provoke Putin to Putin's biggest mistake was he didn't invade earlier.
Mhm.
He should have invaded when Obama was in office. I mean, that's his biggest mistake. Anyone who tells me that if Donald Trump was in office, he would have invaded is retarded. We know that if
Mhm.
Donald Trump would not have had the election taken from him in, certain counties, they fixed certain counties all around the country, that wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't happen. And he says October 7th wouldn't have happened. I tend to believe that. I tend to believe October 7th might not have happened if he was president. Um, but because I mean, think about if you're a leader. Think about if you're somebody who like the head of Hamas or something like that. Or think about if you're Biden or think about if you're Putin and your people are being killed. And you're like, "Who's the president over there? Oh, a guy shitting his pants? Okay, sure, let's do this. Yeah, why not?" I I just yeah, to bring this all the way back around, I don't know. I don't know what to expect.
Mhm.
We could get the most pro, Israel 4 years. I have a tendency to believe I've said about Donald Trump is I don't think Donald Trump's a Zionist. I think he loves Jewish people. He's been
Mhm.
around Jewish people his whole life. I think he likes Jewish people. I think he wants to please people. I actually think his and there's no reason an American president should have anything to do with moving the embassy from one place to another. I think he did that to please a couple friends. I don't think he
Mhm.
did that because he's a Zionist. And that makes a big difference. There's a big difference between somebody being like, "Yeah, I like I've been to Israel a few times and I like it and I like the people," and somebody being a rabid Zionist who's like, Yeah, I don't care if they kill everybody in Gaza, women and children. I don't care, because that's what you have to
Mhm.
be a Zionist. You have to be a Jewish supremacist.
Mhm.
I don't think he's I don't think he's a supremacist for anything. Will he get us into a war for Israel? I highly doubt it. Nothing's off the table.
Mhm.
Nothing's off the table when, it's gonna be who his closest advisors are. His biggest problem last time was he wasn't ready. He hired people who weren't gonna be loyal to him, weren't even gonna be loyal to him, but loyal to his vision of what he wanted it to do. I think he's doing a little better this time. So, I think he's
Mhm.
got, some outside the some elites that are looking to supplant the current elites that are in charge.
Mhm.
Pareto talks about a circulation of elites, and every once in a while you have to have a circulation of elites, or else everything just, elites just become deranged and decadent, and you get what we have now. So,
Right. Well, maybe a good place to wrap it then. Do you think this supporting Trump and Vance right now is a down payment on kind of like a more Vance, Peter Thiel-esque kind of future for the Republican Party?
maybe, maybe. One of the, a lot of people have reasons for not liking Peter Thiel, and I understand all of them. One thing that I do know about Silicon Valley people is they cherish competence, which is why, I think someone like Vivek or JD Vance can look at the administrative state and say it has to go,
Mhm.
because you can't have competence. You can't have competent governance if you have people who, have no skin in the game. And let's face it, people in the administrative state, they don't have any skin in the game. But I think they like competence. I've heard one person that I've really been following very closely is Mark Andreessen, and watching him talk about how, we need a strong military, if for nothing else, just to be a deterrent for other people. I mean, we have a very weak military right now. We don't have enough foot soldiers to, if our if you're just looking at our enlisted class of soldiers, like just say the army, they would have lasted 2.5 months in Ukraine, fighting as Ukraine did, because there's less than 30,000.
Mhm.
Leah Enfield and I went over an Army War College paper on my show that talked about that. So the military needs to be built back up, because the world we live in, you need a strong military. People will mess with all of your interests. We don't need to have bases in 180 countries or however many countries we have. Hopefully somebody will look at that and go, yeah, we need to draw that back. But the reason we have those bases, especially the bases in Europe, is because of World War II. And, you know, who's occupying us? Who's been occupying us since World War II? Um, so City of London is Rothschilds, people like that. They control international banking. They used to control a lot in the United States up until Jerome Powell went to war with them. Um, Started going to war with them a couple of years ago, and we got off of LIBOR, which is London Interbank exchange rate, and that allowed like London to, if you took out a credit card in Oklahoma, an Oklahoma bank, London was dictating what the interest rate was on that.
Mhm.
And we got out of that, and now it's run through SOFR in Chicago, and we've seen the euro weaken to the point where the euro's on life support right now. That's just because Jerome Powell, the first Gentile Fed president in decades upon decades, and I think a seventh generation Virginian, has decided to go to war with the Rothschilds and their faction over there. While you have one of their faction as the head of the Treasury here, Janet Yellen, which is not an easy thing to do, um, where you have one of the occupying people controlling the Treasury. Um, So I think the city of London is scrambling. They're trying to figure out a way. I mean, I guess they maybe called in some favors from Malay and Argentina, who it turns out is one of them, and he sent them gold. And I think pretty much the reason, consensus from some people I know who are in the know, say he sent them gold so that they'd have more to lend against. They can use
Mhm.
it as a backing to lend with, because they need to be able to lend money in order to make money,
Mhm.
because that's what the Rothschilds do. And yeah, so them, World Economic Forum is, I know you didn't even bring them up. World Economic Forum,
Mhm.
from everything I understand, talking to my friend Stormy Waters, is just basically a sort of a sideshow. Uh,
Mhm.
it floats things out there to see how people react. I'm not really too worried about the World Economic Forum anymore. Once you really start understanding where power and wealth comes from, you realize it's not from them. They still have a lot to say, and there's still some people there who hold some power, but still.
Maybe this comparison is or isn't apt, but would you almost kind of say like the World Economic Forum is almost like a think tank for some of the leaders in a way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, it's a place, it's a place. I mean, I know people, I've talked to people who've spoken at the World Economic Forum, and
mhm,
they say, well, you kind of have to. You have, if you're getting your name out there and you're in business, you're a VC or something like that. It's an easy way to get your name out there, and you don't even have to agree with them. And
mhm,
apparently they're pretty good about that. I mean, they've had a lot of people go there and speak and like shit on them right to their face, you know. There's an old Putin speech from 2021 that's really good, where he's like he almost, I mean, he almost sounds like an Austrian
mhm,
because he's so like, I don't like you people at all.
mhm,
Um because he sees them as the people who would be pulling the strings on or funding a Victoria Newland. So,
mhm,
but you know, there's a lot. There's so much you could talk about. NATO doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, NATO is just basically an excuse for Jewish power to do what it does.
mhm,
You don't see them doing anything. NATO doesn't do anything that isn't benefiting a small country in the Middle East. Um, yeah, there's a lot out there, and one 4-year presidency isn't going to fix it all. So while I hope that, there's a wall somewhere that'll be knocked down, that'll open up some doors, that'll allow us to walk past that wall that was up, to be able to get another couple things done, or be able to build something for the future. If it would be a business, whether it be something parallel or something like that. Hopefully that's what the next 4 years can be. And the next 4 years could be worse. Who
mhm,
knows? You don't know. That's the terrible thing about electoral politics, especially as Tim Kelly asked. Tim Kelly said, does this really even matter when you have an occupied government? So yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I've tried to refrain from making too many predictions because honestly, all mine from 2022, 2021 have been proven absolutely wrong. I think I've been wrong about almost every single thing about this election. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I don't know shit, and that's okay. I'm not shit. That's okay. We're just
Hey,
gonna
I
fucking
got
let
to
it
take
roll,
the
man.
victory lap. I called JD Vance back in February, so I'm taking the victory lap.
Yeah, no, you kind of deserve it because I was rooting for Nikki Haley, not rooting, but I thought that was going to be it because there were a lot of people kind of in that orbit floating that out there, and even his what was it, his daughter-in-law Laura was
You're
saying that that
roboting.
might be it. Oh,
You're roboting right now.
did it break up?
There you go.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, there were
Yeah,
just
you
some
were roboting.
people oh, my bad. But, Laura Trump had put out she was asked on the news if Nikki Haley could be vice president, and, she had said that, "Oh, well, you never know with him," and there were some other people that were kinda hinting at that, but, I think JD Vance was probably the best of all options, the best of all people that he could have picked. Because when I heard Marco Rubio, I'm like, "Oh, please God, no," but he went for JD Vance, and I think anybody that doesn't look at that and say he was the best option, who else were you expecting?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they wanted the homosexual Tim. Some people wanted the homosexual Tim Scott in there. Oh no, wait a minute, he just got married. Poor girl. Um,
Oh, I forgot all about that.
um, some people wanted Ted Cruz, not Ted, Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so bad, so bad. Some people said, I think Dave Smith and Robbie Bernstein wanted Vivek Ramaswamy.
Mm.
Yeah. But you know, uh, we got who we got, and we can just we could be glad it's not Nikki Haley or Marco Rubio or somebody that what you're getting. I'd rather have a wild card at this point than know exactly what to expect about the next 4 years. I want to be surprised or not surprised at all and just be like, oh, same old, same old. Nothing ever changes. I'll become maybe in the next 4 years, I'll become like the ultimate nothing ever changes, bro. But I
Yeah.
mean, but that's black pilling. So, and I'm not black pilled because you can say what you want about politics, but really in your personal life, as long as you're keep moving forward and you keep improving and um, you know, keep moving, don't stay stagnant, the white pills flow. As long as you have personal white pills coming in, really that's all that matters. Your politics is always going to have a black pill for you. So, try to keep the white pills coming in as best you can on your own. To what you can do.
Dude, I completely agree. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful place to wrap it. Pete, go ahead, plug your stuff, man.
Pete Quinones Show, PeteSubstack.com, and the Old Glory Club. We will be doing, check out our channel on YouTube. It's just type in Old Glory Club, and we will be doing the ultimate election night coverage. We've already got we got Dark Enlightenment coming in. Matt Erickson's going to be there. Stormy Waters is going to be there. We're going to have a host of people, and then our own people. Our own people are great too. So yeah, it's going to be fun. But the Old Glory Club, we started 2 years ago. We've got chapters everywhere popping up. They have to be official chapters. They're 501c10s, which are fraternities, and it's just getting people to come together. We have a great presence. We still have a presence on the ground in North Carolina, helping with the recovery there. I know that our president Red Hawk. Red Hawk speaks very well of you. He always mentions you, and
Nice.
yeah. So Old Glory Club. That's what I'm most hopeful for the future is finding young people who are of elite status and doing whatever we can to put them into positions where they can make a change in the world.
Absolutely. Well, I say it all the time that the Old Glory Club is my favorite right wing organization. And on top of that, when it said there was that thing from AF Post saying that the majority of like younger Republican voters support an arms embargo on Israel, I'm like, I'm giving Old Glory Club credit for this. I don't care what it is. You guys get the credit for it. So um, yeah, hopefully everybody goes and checks that out. I'll be turning 30 the day that we know, well, hopefully know the election results. So,
Oh, congrats, man!
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so,
You made
may
it.
yeah, yeah, 3 decades, man. It went by fucking quick, I know that much. Um, but all right, yeah, thank you, everybody so much for listening. Pete, thank you so much for hanging out, man.
Of course,
Um, Stick around for a few minutes and, we'll
sure.
close her out there.